The clock seems to be running to the governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam. The highest points of the Democratic Party inside and outside the state said they should resign because of a racist picture on their medical school yearbook page in 1984. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, presidential candidates and, perhaps more important, Virginia senators and their oldest, all-black representatives said that Northam should step aside. Northam did not stop on Saturday with a press conference in which he combined matters. He denied that he was in the photo, after apologizing for the first time on Friday, and then said he used shoe grease to darken his face to look like Michael Jackson for a dance party in the 80s. He learned to walk on the moon, he said. What do they say about what to do when you are in a hole? Senators Tim Kaine and Mark Warner, as well as Republican Bobby Scott, all Democrats, said in a joint statement following the Northam press conference that we no longer believe that he can effectively serve as governor of Virginia and that he should resign. Before issuing that statement, they had already called Northam to tell him that. On Monday afternoon, Northam was still waiting, but he was a man on an island. The whole episode illuminates not only the problems of Northam, but also the politics of race in the Trump era. The Democrats are saying that if they expect to have high morals, they need to have zero tolerance. A higher pattern. Texas Democratic Deputy Lloyd Doggett told CNN on Monday he does not believe the Democratic Party can resist President Trump's bigotry with Northam still in office. I do not think we can do it, he said, unless we keep all of our employees at a high level. Trump tweeted that what Northam did was unforgivable. But many people saw irony in that. Trump, after all, since the day he launched his presidential campaign in 2015, said that Mexico was sending rapists and drug traffickers to the United States. White complaint exploited to win the presidency. And as president he exposed a kind of moral equivalence between white nationalists and those who protest them after the deadly and racial violence in Charlottesville, Virginia. Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio, who is seriously considering a presidential nomination, did not strike on Sunday in an appearance on NBC's Meet the Press. We have a president who is racist, Brown said, noting Trump's role in the birther movement, in which he questioned the birthplace of former President Barack Obama. The role of the Trump family in the supposed discrimination of housing decades ago. His response to Charlottesville. And the role of his administration in what Brown called suppressing the vote. Democrats see a double standard in the Trump era. They point out that Northam and Al Franken before him had to go Franken for allegations of sexual misconduct, but Trump, Iowa Republican Steve King, who questioned how the white nationalist and white supremacist terms became offensive, and the Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, who landed in hot water on her own racially tinged observations, managed to stay in. Some Republican leaders spoke and criticized King. I think I should find another line of work, said Liz Cheney, president of the Republican Conference of the House and a former Florida Republican Secretary of State. Michael Erdahl resigned quickly last week and apologized for using blackface in 2005. But Trump never asked King to resign, nor Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, although McCarthy was much more definitive when it comes to Northam. Trump also flew to Mississippi to support Hyde-Smith before his election, which was tighter gives what the Republicans wanted. The line has been difficult to define in the Trump era for what is adhered and what is not, what is appropriate and what is not. But Democrats believe that Northam needs to go, so they can continue to speak with some moral authority during Trump's presidency. Democrats, it's a totally different party. What it could mean for 2020. Democrats have a complicated history on the question of race. Of them is the party that named the first black president, but it was also the party of Dixiecrats, which opposed the great part of the Lyndon Johnson's Great Society program, including the Civil Rights Act. Johnson himself used a racist language. The late Robert Byrd of West Virginia, former leader of the Democratic Senate, had already been employed by the KKK. He apologized for his past and became a revered member of the Senate. But how did it look through a political lens of 2019? We've come a long way since the game in the 50s and 60s, said Doug Thornell, a Democratic strategist and former advisor to the Democratic leadership on the Capitol. Now, we are a group of inclusion and diversity, which is reflected in the candidates who attend the presidency, the majority of the House, with a historical number of women and people of color. It is a radical change when we had Dixiecrats. The quick reaction to Northam is proof of that change. Northam is a reminder to many at the party where he was, not where he is going. The change, which has seen a political realignment in recent decades, was punctuated by the Trump presidency. What it means to be a Democrat has assumed a very different form. It's a totally different party, said Jamal Simmons, a Democratic strategist who served as an advisor to the Democratic National Committee during Obama's presidential campaign in 2008 and worked on the Bill Clinton campaign in 1992. Barack Obama's victory in 2008 taught many young African Americans that their political needs and desires no longer need to be placed in the back seat, Simmons added. They can have an impact on American politics. Black Lives Matter was a big business because people were not willing to raise issues of police in the back seat, even in front of a black president. Simmons, who is not affiliated with any presidential campaign, believes the change could make it difficult for former Vice President Joe Biden if he chooses to compete with the White House in 2020. Simmons noted that Biden called Obama clean and articulate in saying, "You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent," as well as dealing with the Anita Hill Clarence Thomas hearings and your support for the criminal law on 90s. Obama not only forgave those comments, but he also asked Biden to join him on admission. The two became good friends. But in the Trump era, times changed and scrutiny of issues of race and gender intensified. Things that seemed good in earlier times do not seem more acceptable, Simmons said. And when those things are processed in today's light, they do not look very nice. You have to be prepared to participate in a party that does not forgive the indiscriminations of the past on these issues of identity and gender. Thornell noted that many of the candidates had to answer for statements or past policies. Senator Kamala Harris for her days as a promoter and defender of harsh tactics against crime, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand for her more conservative positions in relation to weapons when representing a congressional district of the state of New York, Senator Cory Booker for his defense of Wall Street and the pharmaceutical industry, Senator Elizabeth Warren for her DNA test trying to prove her Native American ancestry, for example. No one is perfect here, Thornell said. Nobody is going to have a completely clean record of all these problems. I think the way they are faced is, as they explain, it will be important.